From the moment humans first tried to understand themselves, we have sought a simple story. It is a story told in classrooms and museums, repeated in textbooks and documentaries. Humans began in Africa, emerged as a singular species, spread across the globe, invented tools, developed culture, and dominated every landscape they touched. It is neat, it is linear, it is comforting. Yet the earth does not follow neatness, nor does history. Beneath the soil, within caves, and inside ancient sediments, evidence has been accumulating for decades. Evidence that refuses to fit into the tidy, orderly narrative of human evolution. This is the domain of forbidden archaeology, a field that does not deal in speculation or conspiracy, but in the undeniable facts of discoveries that challenge, disrupt, and often completely overturn what we thought we knew. From DNA sequences that hint at unknown ancestors, to fossils that do not match any known species, to tools older than the earliest humans, the past is revealing a story far more complex than the one we have been taught. And as we begin to follow this evidence, a pattern emerges. Humanity was never alone. Our evolution was not a single straight path, and the world we once believed to be entirely ours was shared with species we are only now beginning to discover. The story begins with DNA, the molecular record written in every cell, quietly preserving the footprints of species long vanished. When scientists sequenced the Neanderthal genome in 2010, they expected a story of clear separation, a branch of humans that diverged and went extinct, leaving behind bones, tools, and a story that ended abruptly. Instead, the data revealed interconnection. Every non-African human carries fragments of Neanderthal DNA, tiny genetic echoes of encounters tens of thousands of years ago. It was a whisper of coexistence, a signal that our ancestors had met, mingled, and reproduced with a species we had long thought entirely separate. But the surprises did not end there. In Denisova Cave, a single finger bone and a tooth revealed an entirely unknown hominin, the Denisovans, whose genetic legacy persists in modern populations across Siberia, Melanesia, and even parts of Southeast Asia. And then came the ghost populations, traces of DNA in modern humans that cannot be linked to any known fossil species. In West Africa, geneticists found markers of an archaic human diverged long before Neanderthals. In South America, indigenous groups carry mysterious lineages with no skeletal counterpart. These ghost populations have no skulls, no tools, no artifacts. They exist only as traces in living humans, as silent evidence of species that thrived, migrated, and vanished without leaving behind bones for us to study. Each discovery forces us to ask unsettling questions. How many human species once existed? How many walked this planet unnoticed, unrecorded, yet left their imprint in our very DNA? And how many of their stories remain forever invisible? While genetics was beginning to rewrite our understanding of the past, the fossil record was delivering equally profound revelations. In 2010, a team in South Africa discovered Homo naledi in a remote chamber of the Rising Star cave system. The species shocked scientists for many reasons, not least of which was the combination of its traits: a small brain, reminiscent of early hominins, yet hands, feet, and legs adapted for complex movement, climbing, and manipulation. The initial assumption was that such a species belonged to the distant past, perhaps 2 million years ago. Dating, however, revealed an astonishing fact. These small-brained humans were alive just 250,000 years ago. This was long after Homo sapiens had appeared and were spreading across Africa. The implications were staggering. Multiple human species coexisted, occupying overlapping territories and possibly interacting with one another. Homo naledi challenges the notion that intelligence or brain size alone determines survival, and suggests that survival was far more complex, shaped by adaptability, environment, and perhaps even culture. Simultaneously, discoveries in southwest China uncovered the so-called Red Deer Cave people, living as recently as 14,000 years ago. Their combination of archaic and modern traits, broad, robust skulls paired with relatively contemporary facial features, suggests a persistence of ancient populations far longer than previously believed. These finds directly challenge the idea that archaic humans were uniformly replaced by Homo sapiens, revealing instead a patchwork of survival, extinction, and migration. Even more confounding were hybrid skulls from East Asia, displaying a mosaic of features from Homo erectus, Homo sapiens, and unknown morphologies, hinting at interactions and interbreeding with species we have not yet identified. Such discoveries reveal a reality far messier than our textbooks suggest, a past populated by multiple intelligent species navigating overlapping ecosystems, climates, and technologies.
Stone tools provide another window into forbidden archaeology, rewriting the timeline of innovation and challenging assumptions about which species were capable of tool-making. For decades, the earliest evidence of tools came from sites in East Africa dating to approximately 2.6 million years ago, associated with early Homo. But in 2015, at Lomekwi in Kenya, archaeologists unearthed a new set of tools, crude, heavy, deliberate, dated to 3.3 million years ago, long before the emergence of Homo. The tools were unmistakably shaped, cores struck with precision, flakes removed with intent, suggesting a cognitive ability not previously attributed to Australopithecus, the likely toolmakers. This discovery expanded our understanding of intelligence in early hominins, demonstrating that toolmaking was not a unique property of Homo, but rather a broader behavior of adaptable, problem-solving species. Across Africa, other sites corroborated this pattern. Tools older than the earliest known Homo fossils, stone implements appearing in regions without any clear fossil evidence. Innovation was not linear, it was dispersed, opportunistic, and possibly exchanged between multiple hominin groups. When we trace these artifacts across time and space, a new picture emerges, an early world alive with experimentation, ingenuity, and the capacity for technology that transcends our narrow assumptions about who was human enough to innovate. In parallel, discoveries of out-of-place artifacts continue to challenge conventional narratives. These are objects and traces that appear too early, in contexts deemed impossible, or in locations that contradict established migration models. Some of the most rigorous examples come from the Americas, where a 2017 study documented fractured mastodon bones in California, deliberately broken with stone tools and dating back 130,000 years. These marks are unmistakable. They are evidence of deliberate action, of a species capable of complex problem-solving, perhaps extracting marrow for sustenance. The problem is chronological. Accepted models suggest humans did not arrive in the Americas until no earlier than 20,000 years ago. Such findings provoke intense debate. Are we to reconsider the timing of human migrations, or is there an alternative explanation for these marks? Similarly, in East Asia and the Arabian Peninsula, evidence of early occupation challenges assumptions about habitability and migration corridors. Fossils and tools suggest repeated ways of dispersal, adaptive ingenuity in hostile climates, and interactions between multiple species and populations. In each instance, the Earth's record whispers a caution. The story of human expansion is not a single march, but a complex dance of adaptation, survival, and coexistence. The question of why so many of these discoveries were overlooked or resisted for decades is as illuminating as the discoveries themselves. Archaeology and anthropology have long operated within paradigms, frameworks constructed to impose order upon a complex past. Linear timelines, staged technological progression, and the expectation that one species replaced another created interpretive lenses that filtered and sometimes ignored evidence that did not conform. Fossils deemed too young or too strange were often cataloged but not analyzed in depth, stored in museum basements or private collections. Technological limitations hampered dating methods, making verification slow or uncertain. DNA sequencing, isotope analysis, and computational modeling were unavailable until the late 19th and early 21st centuries, leaving gaps that could not be resolved. Peer pressure, publication pressures, and the academic imperative for conformity created a culture where bold reinterpretations were risky. But science advances not by avoiding the uncomfortable, but by confronting it. As new tools emerged, as methods improved, previously disregarded evidence could finally be studied with rigor, allowing the forbidden corners of archaeology to illuminate the forgotten or misinterpreted past. As the pieces of this complex puzzle begin to align, a new vision of human history emerges. Africa remains central, but not singular. Multiple Homo species evolved in parallel across continents, and migration was a reoccurring, not singular phenomenon. Interbreeding was common, creating a web of genetic inheritance that defies the metaphor of a simple family tree. Technology appeared independently across regions, sometimes convergently, sometimes shared, reflecting a distributed intelligence among different populations. Fossils of long-surviving archaic humans, from Homo naledi to the Red Deer cave people, suggest that extinction was not uniform. Pockets of ancient lineages persisted for millennia alongside modern humans. And within our DNA, ghost lineages testify to species whose existence is known only through their genetic imprint. These discoveries challenge our assumptions not just about chronology, but about the very definition of humanity. They compel us to consider intelligence, culture, and survival as traits shared across a spectrum of species, many of which remain only partially visible to the fossil record. Human evolution was not a tidy ladder ascending toward modernity. It was a labyrinthine, entangled story of multiple species, migrations, adaptations, interactions, and extinctions. From the deepest caves of Africa to the high plateaus of Asia, from ancient tools buried in impossible layers to genetic sequences hidden in ourselves, the Earth continues to tell its secrets. Each new discovery forces us to confront the possibility that the human past is far stranger, more interconnected, and more extraordinary than we ever imagined. And as we listen closely, we begin to understand that the story of humanity is not a single narrative, but a chorus of voices, some lost, some hidden, and some only now being heard, carrying the echoes of species that once walked beside us, shaping the world in ways we are only beginning to comprehend.
The Americas, often considered a late chapter in human migration, present some of the most provocative evidence challenging conventional timelines. Sites once dismissed as anomalies are now forcing researchers to rethink the peopling of the New World. In California, the fractured mastodon bones, clearly shaped with stone tools and dated to 130,000 years ago, remain one of the most controversial discoveries. Traditional models posit that humans crossed into the Americas no earlier than 20,000 years ago, yet these bones, and others like them, suggest the possibility of earlier migrations, far earlier than previously imagined. Scientists debate the interpretation, scrutinizing every layer, every mark, and every stone. The evidence is fragmentary, but persistent, and it illustrates a larger truth. Human history may have chapters that we have yet to read, lines of inquiry that textbooks have ignored, and populations whose existence remains unacknowledged. Across the Americas, other sites add to this puzzle. Stone tools in South America, early hearths in North America, and ancient settlements that challenge the assumption of a single migration wave. Each find hints at movement, adaptation, and ingenuity far earlier than conventional models allow. Taken together, they form a mosaic in which human expansion was not linear, but episodic and multifaceted. Humans, or hominin relatives, may have repeatedly tested new territories, vanished, and returned, leaving only tantalizing traces of their presence. Simultaneously, the interplay between DNA and fossil evidence is redefining our understanding of human ancestry. The presence of Denisovan DNA in Melanesian and Southeast Asian populations, long before Homo sapiens were expected in these regions, implies contact between species over vast distances.
Ghost lineages discovered in Africa and the Americas reveal populations that contributed genetically to modern humans but left no discernible skeletal remains. These genomic footprints, once invisible, now provide critical insight into populations lost to time. As sequencing technology improves, sediments themselves are revealing fragments of DNA, enabling scientists to detect ancient hominins without ever finding bones. From permafrost in Siberia to cave sediments in Africa, genetic material preserved in soil allows researchers to map interactions, migrations, and survival strategies of long-extinct species. It is as if the Earth itself is whispering the stories that history books have overlooked, telling us that the human past is a tapestry woven from many threads, not a single line of descent. Each fragment, each sequence is a reminder that the story of humanity is far richer, stranger, and more interconnected than we have imagined. Beyond DNA and bones, the tools left by ancient populations continue to challenge our assumptions. In the Old World, sites in Europe and the Middle East reveal stone implements that appear unexpectedly early, suggesting technological innovation by species previously thought incapable of complex cognition. At some locations, tools predate the arrival of Homo sapiens by hundreds of thousands of years. In the Americas, artifacts such as the famed Clovis points, once considered the earliest evidence of human activity, are now being re-examined in light of older finds, indicating that humans may have arrived much earlier than the Clovis first model allowed. Each tool, each mark on stone is evidence of minds adapting to environments, creating solutions, and leaving traces for future generations. The implication is profound. Ingenuity was not exclusive to one species, one population, or one period. Technology, survival, and adaptation were shared across multiple species, overlapping in space and time, often in ways we are only now beginning to understand. The human story becomes even more remarkable when considering the persistence of archaic populations. Homo naledi, alive as recently as 250,000 years ago, demonstrates that small-brained species could coexist alongside early Homo sapiens, challenging the assumption that intelligence or brain size dictated survival. Similarly, the red deer cave people and hybrid populations in East Asia show that archaic humans persisted until surprisingly recent times. These populations were not merely remnants, they were active participants in the landscapes they inhabited, adapting to climates, sharing resources, and perhaps exchanging knowledge with Homo sapiens. Archaeology and genetics together suggest that human evolution was not a process of simple replacement, but one of coexistence, hybridization, and continuous adaptation. Extinction, rather than being uniform, was regionally variable, often delayed by geography, climate, or cultural innovation. As we examine these patterns, a remarkable picture emerges of repeated innovation, migration, and interaction. Populations migrated in waves, testing new habitats and creating tools suited to their environments. Stone implements appear in Africa, Europe, and Asia, not in a simple chronological sequence, but in scattered clusters, suggesting parallel development, experimentation, and possibly cultural exchange. This challenges the traditional narrative of a single linear technological evolution. When we overlay these findings with genetic data, the story becomes even more intricate. Multiple species interacting, interbreeding, sharing, and possibly exchanging knowledge. Intelligence, survival, and culture were not exclusive to Homo sapiens. They were shared across a broader spectrum of hominins, many of whom remain partially invisible to the fossil record. The human past was alive with diversity, innovation, and complexity. Consider the implications for our understanding of migration. Early models propose that humans left Africa in a single exodus, spreading gradually to populate Europe, Asia, and eventually the Americas. Yet the evidence suggests a far more nuanced story. Fossil finds, tool assemblages, and genomic data all point to multiple waves of migration, some previously undetected, some overlapping with earlier populations, and some ending without leaving a lasting mark. The Denisovans, whose genetic signature spans thousands of kilometers, illustrates long-distance dispersal and interaction with other populations. The ghost lineages in Africa and the Americas, and archaic survivors in isolated regions all indicate a web of migrations, hybridization events, and survival strategies that defy a simple linear narrative. Humanity's history is not a march along a straight road. It is a sprawling network of movement, interaction, and adaptation spanning continents and millennia. The more we uncover, the more we recognize the limitations of our earlier frameworks. Fossils once dismissed as anomalies, tools once thought impossible, DNA sequences once ignored, these fragments collectively challenge our most fundamental assumptions. They reveal that intelligence, adaptability, and culture were not confined to our species alone. They demonstrate that human history is not defined solely by our survival, but by the interactions, collaborations, and conflicts with other species that shared the planet. The past, long believed to be a linear progression towards modern humans, is in fact a complex landscape of overlapping populations, migrations, innovations, and extinctions. It is a story that is messy, tangled, and astonishingly rich. And yet, for all the discoveries, much remains hidden. Each site, each fossil, each fragment of DNA is a window into a vast and largely unexplored past. Archaeologists continue to find evidence that forces us to question our assumptions, while geneticists decode genomes that hint at lineages lost to time. Sediments, once overlooked, now yield DNA preserved for thousands of years, offering glimpses of species that left no skeletal remains. The record is incomplete, but tantalizing, suggesting that the human story is far bigger, far stranger, and far more interconnected than anyone imagined. It is a reminder that the Earth keeps its own records, often long before humans arrive to interpret them. As we step back to observe the larger pattern, it becomes clear that the notion of a singular, inevitable human destiny is misleading. Humanity's rise was not predetermined. It was contingent, shaped by chance, adaptation, and interaction with other species. Extinctions were selective, survival was variable, and intelligence was shared. Our ancestors were participants in a vibrant, competitive, and cooperative ecosystem, interacting with species we are only beginning to understand. The evidence is unequivocal. The past is not a ladder. It is a labyrinth full of pathways we have yet to fully explore. Each discovery, the tools, the fossils, the DNA, is the key to unlocking this labyrinth, revealing a world that is at once familiar and utterly alien, our own and yet profoundly other. In examining forbidden archaeology, we confront a fundamental lesson, that history is not defined by certainty, but by evidence. Every fossil, every fragment of DNA, every tool carries a story, and the accumulation of these stories challenge assumptions, revise narratives, and reshape our understanding of what it means to be human. The discoveries we have discussed, Homo naledi, the Red Deer Cave people, Denisovans, ghost lineages, out-of-place artifacts, ancient tools, are not curiosities or exceptions. They are evidence of a past that was far richer, more complex, and more interconnected than we ever imagined. And as methods improve, as more sites are explored, and as more DNA is sequenced, this picture will only become more intricate and more astonishing. And finally, the lesson of forbidden archaeology is both humbling and inspiring. Humbling, because it reminds us that humanity's story is not unique or linear, and that many other intelligent species once walked this earth. Inspiring, because it shows the power of science to uncover truths long hidden, to question assumptions, and to illuminate the complexities of our shared past. It is a reminder that history is a living discipline, constantly evolving as evidence emerges, as interpretations shift, and as the past speaks to the present. In listening to this evidence, we come to see humanity not as a solitary actor on a blank stage, but as one voice among many, part of a vast, interwoven narrative that stretches across continents, species, and millennium. The story of human evolution is not finished. It is only beginning to reveal its full, extraordinary complexity. A tapestry woven with the threads of species, technologies, migrations, and DNA. threads that together tell the story of a planet alive with life, innovation, and adaptation, a story we are only beginning to comprehend. And so, as we close this chapter on forbidden archaeology, we are left with a profound realization. The past is not defined by what we imagined, but by what we uncover. Each discovery, each bone, each artifact, each sequence of DNA is a message from a time we cannot visit, a message that reshapes our understanding of who we are, where we come from, and what it truly means to be human. Humanity's story is not a single line, but a chorus of voices, echoes of species we share the earth with, some lost, some hidden, and some now only being heard, carrying knowledge, adaptation, and survival strategies across time. And as we listen closely, as we continue to study, to dig, to sequence, and to interpret, the earth speaks to us, not in certainty, but in wonder, revealing a past far more astonishing than we ever imagined, a story that challenges our assumptions, ignites our curiosity, and expands our understanding of the very nature of human existence.